Hello Summoners, welcome back to another Pro Guides video. My name is Nathan Ng, and today we'll be talking about the 5 sleeper OP picks and builds that you should be abusing for some free LP. You definitely know the popular OP picks and builds since they're all over social media, including our very own YouTube channel, but in this video we'll be looking at some of the lesser known builds and picks today. The first one that we'll be looking at is a new spicy way to play Twitch. Twitch has been a favorite pick of mine for a very long time, so I love that he's in the bot lane meta right now. His stealth makes him more of an assassin than an ADC in the mid game, so it feels like you can be a bit more proactive than other marksmen. But being played bot lane usually means that you're going to be going down a couple of levels on the solo lanes, which can make going for picks on them a little bit iffy later on into the game even when you're pretty fed. And that's where our sleeper builds come in. Instead of going with the meta and playing him bot lane, when you put Twitch mid, you get to play into that assassin identity a little bit harder. Not only do you get more levels from being a solo laner, but you also have that ability to go for roaming plays a lot more often. Since you're in the very center of the map, you have the ability to roam to either side lane or invade the enemy jungle and catch the jungler out on a camp. This build also has you going for the AP build on Twitch. The AP build doesn't do quite as much DPS in extended fights, but it does a lot more burst up front. Since your goal is to play him like an assassin, that lines up perfectly with what you're going for. Now let's take a look at the build that you'll want to run with this. For your runes, take First Strike, Magical Footwear, Biscuit Delivery, Time Warp Tonic, Presence of Mind, and Alacrity. The stat runes being Attack Speed, Adaptive Force, and Armor or Magic Resist. For your items, you'll start with a Dark Seal and a Refillable Potion. The first item that you'll build into is Nashor's Tooth. Once that's done, pick up Lucidity Boots and build towards Crown of the Shattered Queen. At this point, upgrade Dark Seal into Magi's. Usually Magi's in a build is optional, but here it's not. The entire point of this build is snowballing hard, so if you're not able to keep up with stacks, then you're probably going to be losing the game anyway. Once Magi's is done, grab Rabbit on Death Cap and then top things off with the Void Staff. Part of what makes sleeper OP picks so successful is the fact that nobody plays them. Objectively speaking, they may not be better than or even as good as the most popular picks, but when your opponent doesn't really know how to play against them, you get that extra edge in the fight. But that alone isn't quite enough to win you all of your solo queue games. You also need to have the skills to get those early leads and know how to use those leads to win your games. And that's exactly what we try to teach over at ProGuides.com. Our top tier coaches over at ProGuides.com can really help you figure out exactly what you need to work on. They're available 24/7, so it's never really a bad time to come try one out. I promise, there's at least one that specializes in exactly what you're looking for. These guys have spent years reaching the top of the ladder, so why wouldn't you want to steal all their solo queue tips and tricks? And there's no better time than now to sign up because we're running a pretty sweet deal. Just use the discount code WINTER when you check out for 20% off your sub. Now let's get back on topic, shall we? The next build that we have for you is for Senna, and it's a lot different than what you're pretty much used to seeing on her. Whether Senna is being played as a support or a bot lane carry, she's pretty much always either gone for a marksman build or a beefier bruiser-esque build with items like Black Cleaver. Either way, she's used some sort of AD build with a focus on dealing damage and her support abilities being more of an auxiliary feature. But this new build changes that. Instead of trying to out-damage the carries on your team, the entire build is focused on maximizing your utility in team fights. It also makes you a great deal tankier than the normal glass cannon builds that you see on Senna these days. That way, she's actually viable in games where the enemy team is stacked with assassins and divers that would otherwise insta-kill you in fights. Now let's take a look at the build in full. For your runes, you'll run Summon Airy, Mana Flow Band, Transcendence, Scorch, Conditioning, and Revitalize, the set runes being double Adaptive Force and either Armor or Magic Resistance. This is generally the best rune setup for a couple of reasons. Airy is the best runes for giving more pressure in lane, since it gives it a little bit more damage every time you go for a Q auto trade for souls. Conditioning adds a bit of tankiness later on into the game, while Revitalize does really well with Senna's kit, as well as the items that you're going to be building for. Speaking of which, here are the items that you're going to be getting. Start out with Spectral Sickle, then Rush Boots of Swiftness. For your Mythic, you'll be going for Locket of the Iron Solari. This item doesn't really synergize particularly well with Senna at all. You're simply getting it for the teamfight utility that it provides. Your next item is Redemption. After that, if your team is AD heavy and you can use the Armor Shred, go for Black Cleaver. If you don't think you need Cleaver, Axiom Arc is a good alternative. Senna's ultimate is a really long cooldown, so chopping 20% off of it per takedown in fights feels pretty nice. For your last item, you'll want a Ward Stone, so you can go ahead and keep placing control wards. The next pick that we have for you is Nunu. Nunu has been top of the tier list as a jungler for quite a few patches now, but we aren't talking about Nunu jungle. This is the return of Nunu mid. Way back in Season 10, Nunu mid was an insanely strong pick with a deadly combination of instant wave clear and insane ganks. Even Faker was riding the wave, completely crushing the Korean Challenger ladder, proving that it wasn't a pub-style pick against lower elo players. After some nerfs and meta shifts, Nunu mid largely lost a lot of its power and fell out of the meta. But like all truly OP picks, Nunu mid has crawled its way back into being really strong. But it's still under the radar, making it a sleeper pick that you should definitely be abusing. Roam heavy picks like this are kind of buffed by the fact that they are so rare. The less people that play against his playstyle, the less they are used to avoiding the roams. It's the same reason that every Aurelian soul seems to be fed out of their mind. Even though perma roaming isn't necessarily new to that champion, you only seem to see him once in a blue moon, so you easily fall for his cheesy ganks. Anyway, let's look at the build that you'll be going for. For your runes, run Dark Harvest, Cheap Shot, Eyeball Collection, Relentless Hunter, Celerity, and Water Walking, with the stat runes being Double Adaptive Force and either Armor or Magic Resistance. For your items, you'll start with the Doran's Ring, pick up an early Dark Seal, and then build into Everfrost as your mythic. Once that's done, go for Sorcerer's Shoes and then upgrade Dark Seal to Medgi's and then go for Shadow Flame. Next up, grab Rabadon's Death Cap and then top everything off with the Void Staff. If you're struggling to keep the stacks up in the late game, you should swap out Medgi's for either Zhonya's or Cosmic Drive. Before we get into the next pick, I think it's time for our question of the day. What champion do you plan on maining in the season? I know I'm going to be abusing a lot of Skarner. That champion is still super underpicked, and I do a bruiser build on him that makes him a super reliable carry, instead of being a CC bot that relies on having a good team to do damage. Let us know your answers in the comments down below, and let's get back on topic. The next off-meta pick that we have for you is Jax in the jungle. It's not that Jungle Jax is better than Top Jax. In fact, since junglers get a lot less gold and experience than solo laners, in some ways it's actually worse. But you don't want to compare Jungle Jax to Top Jax. Instead, compare Jungle Jax to other carries in the jungle. Jax scales just as hard, if not harder, than even the best hyper carries. In fact, since most other hyper carries are auto attackers like Yi and Kindred, he serves as a direct counter to them. But Jax isn't just an AFK farming champion like those other hard scaling options. He's a really strong duelist, able to stand up against the other strong early duelists like Lee and Xin Zhao. And with him having both gap closers and easy to land CC, his ganks aren't too shabby either. All in all, he's a really solid pick that's strong in all stages of the game. The one weakness that he does have is if your team loses so hard early and you end up with nothing to farm in the later stages of the game. But you know, at that point, what farm heavy champion is good? Anyway, here's the build that you'll want for Jax jungle. For your runes, you'll run Press the Attack, Triumph, Alacrity, Coup de Grace, Sudden Impact, and Ravenous Hunter, with the stat runes being Attack Speed, Adaptive Force, and Armor. For your items, you'll start off with the Hail Blade, and then build into Trinity Force. After that, grab either Merc Treads or Plated Steel Caps, and then go for Blade of the Ruined King. Your next 3 items will vary depending on your game's needs. If you need that 5v5 durability, Syrax is a typical go-to next. If you're dealing with mostly AD champions and want something more offense heavy, go for Death Stance. Wit's End is of course great if you need some magic resist. If your team has plenty of damage and you just want to be a tanky frontliner, some great options are Frozen Heart, Randuin's Omen, and Force of Nature. Honestly, Jax is such a broken champion that if you just mix and match any combination of these items, it'll look disgusting, but it'll be probably pretty good. Finishing off our list, we have Swain top. We have talked many times about how absolutely OP Swain is as a bot laner, in both roles for over a year now. But we very rarely discuss him in his originally intended role as a solo laner. And it's something that we should all be paying more attention to. Swain has a bit of a clunky feel to him, making him a little bit awkward to learn. But once you put in the time and learn to execute his combos, his trading becomes downright oppressive. You burst down your opponent, heal yourself, and then increase your max HP all at once. Meanwhile, the combination of his root and slow leave them unable to trade back. The main weakness that most mages have in the top lane is that they're very vulnerable to the all-ins in the longer lane, so they usually fall off once the opposing laner has their ultimate. But with how OP Swain's ultimate is, he wants nothing more than an opponent that forces on him. His ultimate is also what makes him so incredibly strong in teamfights. There are a ton of mages that are strong, especially in the current meta, but no matter how fed you are, they're always susceptible to being dogpiled in fights. But with Swain, your ultimate prevents your opponents from all-inning you in lane and also makes you unkillable in teamfights, all the while you dish out insane amounts of damage as long as your ultimate is running. Now let's take a look at the build that you want for an impressive battle mage. For your runes, run Conqueror, Presence of Mind, Tenacity, Last Stand, Mana Flow Band, and Transcendence, with the stat runes being Double Adaptive Force and either Armor or Magic Resist. For your items, start with the Doran's Ring, and then build into Liandry's, Sorcerer's Shoes, and Zhonya's Hourglass. After that, go for Demonic Embrace, Rabadon's, and Void Staff. This build gives you a bit of durability, all the while giving you plenty of damage. But if your team has enough damage and you want to be even tankier, you can replace Void Staff with something like Randuin's, Frozen Heart, or Spirit Visage. And that wraps things up for our sleeper OP builds that you're missing out on for patch 12.1. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and if you did, make sure you sub so you never miss out on our meta guides and you're always in the loop on what the best picks are. Remember, let us know what champion you're planning on maining for Season 12 down in the comments below. And one last thing, don't forget to check out our Discord in the description box below, where you can discuss League further or just hang out and be part of our community. If you want to see me outside of ProGuides, please follow me on twitch.tv/Nathan_ing. I would love to hang out with you guys. I can't wait to see you guys back in the next video, but until then, stay safe, stay healthy, and have a wonderful day. Peace.